speed management relies on a coordinated multi-sectoral efforts that involves infrastructure planning and design, legislation and traffic policy, vehicle safety standards, as well as a combination, of course, of public awareness and deterrent based on the enforcement. You have this morning, in this morning panel, top experts who will be able to really deep dive with you in some of these issues. For my part this morning, and in the next couple of minutes, I just would like to bring to your attention one important aspect of this whole debate, and that is infrastructure, and more specifically, the attention we need to pay on road design standards and guidelines. And I've prepared a couple of slides because that makes it easier since this is all on virtual, and with the help of technology, I should be able to start sharing my screen and my presentation. Let me start maybe by telling you, for those of you who are not familiar with the IRF, the International Road Federation, who we are, so you can also put into context what I will be saying. We are an independent not-for-profit organization which was established in 1948. We're now based in Geneva, Switzerland, but we operate globally around the world. The membership really encompasses the entire spectrum of stakeholders in the roads and mobility sector, so public sector, private sector, academia, NGOs. 73 years of action around three main strategic pillars: knowledge and expertise sharing and dissemination. Sorry, this went back. Connection, so really bringing people, businesses and organizations together, connecting and fostering partnerships. And last but not least, of course, policy and advocacy that we do at both national level but also international level. Some of you may know us as well because of the IRF World Road Statistics. It's our compilation of data, comprehensive compilation of data that we produce since 1964, 57 years now, and that has a specific part on road safety data as well. And one final point, important for you to know, we have launched last year the IRF World Statistics Data Warehouse to facilitate, in fact, not only the access, but also visualization and analysis through the data warehouse. Now, going back to what we were saying and the importance of infrastructure, more specifically the attention on road design standards, I want to bring to your attention and share with you some of the findings of some piece of research and work that we did together with partners within the EU-funded Safe Africa project. We actually made an assessment of road design standards in 5 countries. You see them on the screen: Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Kenya, Tunisia, and South Africa. Now, most of you know that road design standards construction, maintenance, and operations of roads, and are generally supported by guidelines and standards, and for aspects, of course, related to road sign, marking, signalization, and so on. Guidelines worldwide, and that's what we found with specifically as well in the research in Africa, provide limited insight into the relationship between the different design elements and road safety. And that's not only an issue for Africa developing countries, but for example, even in the Netherlands, only in just over 30% of the design elements, a road safety effect is actually mentioned. And what does this mean? This means that it's extremely difficult for the designer, who on the top of it most of the time is not necessarily a road safety specialist, to understand and determine the quantitative road safety effect when it comes that he has to, for example, deviate from the recommendations in the guidelines during the design process. What we found specifically in the case of SEFA Africa, so the countries, the 5 countries that I mentioned before, was that the design and construction, reconstruction or rehabilitation is carried out on the basis of a combination of local and international design standards and manuals and guidelines. Most of those were from the 70s, and there are no specific guidelines for urban roads. That means that very often what we notice while working on those countries, there was this underlying assumption that if the roads are designed according to the guidelines, then they should be automatically safe. But as said before, the road safety consequences of design choices are not explicitly dealt with in the guidelines. And so the result is that many roads are being constructed with inherently unsafe design features. And that links back as well to the issue of speed. The designs are checked, but not against specific road safety design criteria. And last but not least, an important point, road authorities, many of them have not adopted road safety audit and inspections as a standard practice. So those type of practices that would actually allow us to check whether we do have in that specific stretch of road an appropriate and safe, for example, speed. We are looking into this issue of designs and infrastructure, more specifically safety of infrastructure within the 10-step pilot, the 10-step project in Tanzania. This is a 2-year project founded by the United Nations and co-financed by GRSF, the Global Road Safety Fund of the World Bank. It's a project which is implemented by UNECA, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, in partnership with us, the International Road Federation, who is the project lead, the International Road Assessment Program, IRAP, so the World Road Association, Tanzania Roads Association, so TARA, our main local partner, but together with plenty and most of the road safety agencies, the road agencies in Tanzania. The 10-step plan is actually a framework which was developed within the project group 2 of the UNRSC that I have the pleasure to chair since a couple of years. And we developed this framework really as a supporting tool for those countries seeking to implement initiatives in relation to improve safety of infrastructure, both new infrastructure and so new roads and existing roads. The publication is available on the GTKP Knowledge Center. The 10-step pilot in Tanzania, the aim is really to build both the institutional capacity and the regulatory framework to support the UN target 3 and 4 that you see on the right-hand side of the slide. These are part of the 12 voluntary UN targets. Target 3 says that by 2030, all new roads should achieve at least three-star rating or better, and target 4 by 2030, 75% of travel on existing roads should happen, should meet technical standards for all road users. As I was mentioning, well, the expected outcomes of this project, which is a lot wider than just road design standards, will be looking into reviewing, if it exists, the infrastructure, specifically road safety infrastructure strategy and action plan. We'll be working on road design standards, manuals and guidelines for the region that we are aiming at setting up a national route program. Indeed, try to create in the country a national training accreditation system on those issues extremely important, and test everything we have been developing throughout the project, really on concrete and ongoing projects in the country right now. This is, I'll leave the slide with you. I'm not going to go through this. It's really in a nutshell what the 10 steps of the framework are all about. Guidelines for the national training accreditation system, because capacity building on those issues is extremely important, and test everything we have been developing throughout the project, really on concrete and ongoing projects in the country right now. This is, I'll leave the slide with you. I'm not going to go through this. It's really in a nutshell what the 10 steps of the framework are all about. I want as well to mention that the availability of plenty of resources when it comes to infrastructure and road safety management and safer roads and mobility on the GTKP, the Global Transport Knowledge Partnership. You see circled in red the specific part that hosts many of the knowledge resources produced within the UNRSC, but know as well that there's a lot more under the road safety section, a lot more resources, including more information about the 10-step pilot. I want to conclude, since we are in the UN Road Safety Week, by letting you know that as well, IRF has stepped forward as well during the week. We just published on Tuesday an IRF open letter in support of the week with 4 main points and a call for action to reduce road travel speed to 30 km an hour where vulnerable road users and vehicle mix, to design roads that address the needs of all road users, and then that can constructively guide driver behavior, enforce traffic speed, and then educate, because we all know by now that speed kills. Thank you very much. I really am sorry that I cannot be live with you on the panel today. Unfortunately, I have a medical appointment that I cannot miss, but I wish you a constructive discussion, and I look forward to watch back the recordings. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much to really nice presentation by the Susanna Zamattaro, and I want to go to the next presenter, that would be Dr. Hafez Alavi, and I'm sure you will enjoy his presentation as well. And let me start the presentation. Okay. Thank you, Hafez. The floor is yours.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ali. And I just wanted to say hello and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone here. Would love, if possible, and if you can, would love you to open your video so I can see your faces. That would be amazing. So for the first exercise, I've got 2 presentations. One is on Mentee and one is on a sort of typical presentation. So I put in the code here so you can go and just open the Mentee. I think Ali also can share that, and then we can start the exercise. So just give maybe 10 seconds for you people to enter the Mentee code. Fantastic. Cool. So I also wanted to celebrate this week of global road safety. Road trauma is one of the major causes of pain and suffering and premature deaths around the globe. And I'm pretty sure we identify with the pain, and we really want to sort of, fight back road trauma. That's why we're here. And today I'm going to share a few things about speed and speed management. Let us begin with just understanding where you people are from. So in the first Mentee exercise, I want you to go through the map and just pinpoint where you're from. Fantastic. So we've got Iran, we've got UK, we've got Australia, fantastic. Africa, yeah, Asia, beautiful, India. So our colleagues and friends in North America are asleep, but that's okay. Fantastic. I give another 10 seconds for people to jump on Mentee. If you have problems accessing your Mentee, please just put in the chat box or directly message Ali so we can help you to connect to Menti. So fantastic. So we are having a really good coverage. It's beautiful. Terrific. So for the next exercise, I would love you to choose which part of the sectors you're from. And for this exercise, you can choose multiple options. So some of us are working for academia and also work for the private sector or having advocacy. Would love to know. So fantastic. We have public service here, civil society, fantastic private academia. That's great. That's great. I might give another 5-10 seconds for you to send your responses. So actually we have a really nice mix of public and private and civil society and academia here. Fantastic. Now, for the next couple of slides here, I would love to sort of tease your brain before jumping into the presentation. And also in the presentation, we will have a few questions and answers. And that's for really engaging you and making you sort of, think about the topics we talk about and just share your perspective and your understanding. For the questions I'm going to ask for the next 2 slides, the answers might differ based on jurisdiction. So I just put brackets for the answers and you will see. So the first question is, what are your thoughts? What is the contribution of a speed to road trauma, specifically deaths around the globe? Is it 10 to 20? Is it 20 to 30? Or 30 to 50? I give maybe 10 seconds and then I show the correct answer. I think we here quite unanimous. We have around 18, 19, 20 answers and everybody choosing 30 to 50. As I said, depending on the jurisdiction, that figure can differ. So, cool. So the correct answer is 30 to 50% of road trauma, specifically deaths here, is because of speeding. We also need to remember that speeding not usually properly recorded by the police or by the authorities when they analyze the crashes. So that figure might be even more. Okay, next one. So the next question is about, think about the number or the percentage of drivers who speed or exceed the limits sometimes. And already we have a few answers. Fantastic. Fantastic. By the way, I want to thank you, all the people who have turned on their cameras. Some of your faces I know, some I don't. It's very lovely to meet you all. Oh, I see some people from Australia. Lena, I know you. Alex is here. Good to see you guys. Angus here. Tanya, hello. Fatima, hello. Just great to have you. Okay, fantastic. So the correct answer here almost is 40 to 60%. And again, depending on the jurisdiction, that might be different. That's why we have different answers here. So apologies, it's not correct or wrong. This is just different jurisdictions. Now, think about the average speed. If we could, in your jurisdiction, drop the average speed by 1K, what are your thoughts? What is the reduction in road deaths? And this is phenomenal because it really defines the role of speed management in each jurisdictions. What we're doing has a direct and straight impact on road trauma. 1K, the percentage drop. So again, we're having a nice consensus here. So the science behind speed is quite solid and robust. And the science I've used here are the work done by Professor Rune Elvik and Max Cameron from Australia and from Norway, and supported by other research across Europe and Australia and other places. So just quickly, so we're thinking around 7%, 5 to 10% is the drop in the limits. So now let's get into it and let's get into the presentation. If you allow me to quickly change to my presentation. So I hope that you can see the presentation properly here. Before starting, thank you. I wanted to just mention a few words about Ali Zarzadeh. I know Ali for over 10 years from Road Safety Pioneers. Quite frankly, this person, I don't know many people as enthusiastic and passionate about road safety and with impact as this person. I really want to pay you kudos, man, and thank you for doing what you're doing. You're making a difference in a really good cause. Thank you. So my presentation today is about speed and road safety. We're going to have a few quizzes. I want to tease my audience usually, so I'm going to ask questions and we're going to think about them. And I will discuss the fundamentals of speed management, how you can have a whole system speed management. Susanna, in her presentation, talked about all those steps of speed management. We're going to talk about them a little bit in more details. So the relationship between speed and road safety. So when we talk about speed and road safety, we are talking about two different concepts, speed and speeding. What is the difference? So when we say speed, what we're talking about is the kinetic energy, the mechanisms of crash, and the threshold of people sustaining serious trauma. So that's about the speed as a physical phenomenon. When we talk about speeding, we talk about limits. We talk about going above the limits or having inappropriate speed for the environment. And both of these factors are influential in road safety outcomes. I'll explain a little bit more. So when we talk about speed, it's about survivability of speed levels. So if you look at all the major crash mechanisms, from run off the road into a tree, sideways, from pedestrian and cyclist crashes, from rear enders, head-ons, side impacts, and head-on to a tree, all of them, based on the evidence, have different level of survivability. For example, if you're running sideways to a tree, the survivable level is 30K. For pedestrians, it's also 30K. For a rear ender, it's 40K. For a head-on, 70. For a side impact, 50. And head-on to a tree is 50. So you need to remember these speeds because these are the boundary of human condition to survive crashes. Also, we know that the speed is very important for vulnerable road users. Let me discuss that. So this chart shows the relationship between the impact speed and the risk of an adult pedestrian sustaining severe trauma. And the line shows the relationship. Let me talk a little bit more about those limits. So usually in Australia, for example, we have a default speed limit of 50 in urban areas. Sometimes we do 40, sometimes we do 30. The difference in risk is phenomenal and significant. So dropping the speed limit from 50 to 30 reduces the risk from 80% to around 20-30%. And that is the main reason we advocate for 30 kilometers per hour. Some of my friends ask, Hafez, is 30 kilometers enough? I would say that's the wonderful step to take. Let's take the step. But also, let's think about more vulnerable road users. So when we talk about pedestrians and cyclists, we usually design the road for healthy male adult pedestrians and cyclists. We need to go beyond that. We need to include everyone. We have to include children, the elderly, people with different abilities and capability, and design the system for them. Okay, so now let's have a look at the speeding part. So we talked about the speed as a physical phenomenon. Now we focus on the speeding as a socio-cultural phenomenon, if you will. So speeding can be a variety of different types. So speeding can be intentional, it can be unintentional, it can be low level, less than 10K over the limit, or it can be high level, and it can be low range repeat and high range. By this, we mean people who repeatedly speed and people who speed once in a while, and they are different. Okay, now let's delve into the brain of a person who speeds. What determines the chances or the options or the choices of a person's speed? We know from evidence, and I'm talking about in this slide about a variety of research around the globe. So there are personal, social, situational, and legal factors that define that. In terms of personal, being young and male is a positive contributor. Being type A personality, or having a higher income, or having anti-social behavior, or being a sensation seeker helps people or contributes to speeding. In terms of social phenomena, there are a few things going on. We as social animals, we follow social norms. If our surroundings in terms of social sanction allow speeding or permit speeding or don't complain about the speeding, we speed. So there are a few social factors involved. In terms of the situation, we look at the traffic around us. If the traffic is speeding, we speed. We also look at the trip. If we go, for example, to an appointment, we're more likely to speed other than when we go to a party that we can be late. Also, it's vehicle. We know that vehicles can go faster or having a higher sort of level from the road are more likely to speed, and also road. In terms of legal aspects, the penalty and the perception of getting fines for speeding has an impact on speeding decisions. So these are some of the factors defining speeding. Now, let's have a look at the impact of speeding on the risk of casualty crashes. So in a 60 km/h environment, if you go at like 10K above the speed limit, you are 2 times more likely to have a serious casualty crash. Now, if you go 20K above, you're 6 times more likely to have a serious casualty. So it's very, the relationship is exponential. Now, quiz time. Hopefully we're ready for quiz. What I want you to do, I'm gonna raise a few questions. I would love you to put your answers in the chat box so we can have a look at them, and then I'll reveal the answer and we can discuss them. For the quiz, I'm going to use data from Victoria, Australia, and this is the data from the Road Safety Monitor collected by the Transport Accident Commission in Victoria. So the first question is the public's perceptions of danger. So if you think about drink driving, we ask people, what is the perception of risk out of 10? I give the answer for this one. So people said drink driving is dangerous, 9.5 out of 10. Okay. Now, let's have a look at drowsy driving, or when you are fatigued, or when you're sleepy at the wheel. What is the risk? And I would love you to put your answers in the chat box. I'm going to open the chat box here for myself. And so 8, 6, 8, 7.5, 6, 8. Cool. So we're talking about somewhere between 7 to 9 here. So we're having a good consensus here. So I reveal the answer. The answer is 9.2. Fantastic. Next one. So here we have crossing the road while listening to a headphone. This is the concept of distraction. We get distracted, we don't see the risk around us. What is the public's perception of danger? So we have Alex 7, Jung saying 9, fantastic, 8.5, 7, 9, fantastic. Fantastic. So again, we have a narrow band here. The answer for this one, public thing, is 7.9 out of 10. Now, the last one is drive a few kilometers above the speed limit in a 100K zone. We ask people, what is your perception of risk here? 2, 9.2. So I love this one. This is quite divisive. So you have really low and you have really high. 8, 9, 6. So we're getting for this one the whole gamut. We're getting the whole gamut. Fantastic. I'll share. So people think 6.1 is the danger. Now, let me have a discussion here. So if you look at the perception of public, people think fatigue, drink driving, and distraction are, generally speaking, highly more dangerous than low-level speeding. This might be factual, but this points to a phenomenon in the society. The risk of speeding is not registered by the public. We need to do some work to tell people speeding, even though low-level speeding is dangerous. Okay, next question. Now, this is about, we ask people how fast you can go before getting booked by the police. And I'll give you the answer for the first one. So in a 60K zone, if we ask them, if you go between 60 to 65, should you be booked? And 90% of people say, yes, if I go 62K in a 60K zone, I should be booked. Fantastic. Now the question is for you. What is the figure for a 100K zone? If you go between 100 and 105, 10%, 5, 50, 30, 20, 80. Fantastic. Cool. So in this case, only 66% of people think that they should be booked. And there is this significant difference between higher speed environment and lower speed environment. And this is crucial to understand. So we thought about it, and there are a few reasons we think people might show that propensity. First of all, the cognitive process of people is more engaged in a lower speed, in sort of urban environment, 60K environment. And the reason for that is the clutter, all the information. So usually high speed environment are less cluttered. So that's one reason. The second reason is perception. When you drive in a 60K environment, you're more likely to see pedestrians and cyclists and the elderly and children, and that makes you be more aware of risk. And that's why maybe people think you should be booked if you speed. In a 100K, they're less likely to see these people. And finally, there is a concept of invincibility. We as human beings think we are invincible, other people's not. So when we are driving in a 100K zone, we don't see like many other people and we think we are invincible, so we think we cannot speed. But in a 60K zone, we see other people, we think they're gonna die if we hit them, so we don't speed. Okay, and last one is also quite interesting. So we ask people, do you feel guilty if you speed? And funnily, 66% of people say they don't feel guilty if they speed. Now, let me build on that. And the question is for you. So what percentage of people intentionally speed? 66% say, I don't feel guilty to speed. I want to know what percentage of people intentionally. So we have 30, we have 70, we have 25, we have 50, 50 to 60. So we're talking about somewhere between, we have 80 also here. So I think that the band is somewhere between 30 and 50. And that's correct. So 40% of people say, I intentionally speed. Now, this is the turn. We ask them, imagine a universe, imagine a world that there was no fine, no police, no booking. Would you speed? What percentage of people would speed? 100%, somebody said. 50% come from Melbourne. 30, 90, 80, 50. So you see, like, we go to the upper band almost, like 70s and 80s and 90s and 60s here. By the way, some of you are directly messaging me. Please share your response in the forum for everyone to see. Cool.
You
so
have
the answer for
5 minutes remains, so yeah, just
100%. So 76% here. So when you look at the difference is phenomenal. And that points to the social unacceptability. Now, I've got 5 minutes. I really want to talk about speed management fundamentals. So I want to take you to the country of the Netherlands and talk about the main steps of speed management. So when you want to speed manage an environment, you first determine the safe speed, you ensure credibility, you inform the road users, you change the road, then enforce, and finally keep educating. And you notice that the first 4 steps are by road authorities, us here, before going and enforcing. Let me delve into them. Safe speed, we discussed it. If you want to set the limit, use this speed limit to set your speed. In terms of credibility, ensure the environment is credible and speed is credible for everyone, cyclists, pedestrians, car drivers. And people usually don't find it credible if they don't know why you're doing what you're doing, or you have similar roads with different speed limits, or you have similar limits on different roads, or you have just a speed sign to tell people what to do. You tell them 30 is safe, but everywhere is 50, it's not credible, and you don't consult people. Okay, then it is information. Information is about usually telling your drivers by signing, by road marking, by variable message signs, by road safety technology, by in-vehicle technology with ISA, and finally by clear road functions from like the Netherlands, for example, for them to understand and inform what the speed to choose. So this is not driver information. Change the road. There are quite a few things that, if needed, you can change the environment. We have really strong evidence that 30 is enough. We can do few bits and pieces. So if you want to do a few bits and pieces to change your environment, you can use some of these information here. Okay, enforcement. My colleague, we're going to talk about enforcement in depth, so I'm not going to focus on that. And finally, it's about education. Public education plays a role. There are a variety of campaigns around the world, in Australia, in Europe. Please reach out to people. Please use this evidence and educate your public. Before I say, thank you and finish my presentation, I want to plug in the Speed Management Hub by the World Bank and the GRSF. Fantastic information is put on this website. Some of the really, really good experts in the field are collating the evidence and information for you. Just go to this website. You're gonna find fantastic FAQs and information to help you with your work. And I really want to pay thank you and kudos to the team here from GRSF and World Bank. So with that, I want to thank you all. Ali, floor is yours, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Really fantastic presentation and very well designed and fascinating looks, and bravo, Fez. I'm really happy to have you here for today, and I think it was quite informative for all of us who want to start something in terms of engineering measures. And I think we all have great ideas to what can be done in terms of both philosophy of the speed management and also the measures we can hire to invest or prioritize to do something with speed management. I want just go to the next presenter. That would be my colleague and friend Mohsen. We know each other for more than 10 years, and we have worked together both in campaigning, in research, and he has a PhD from TMU, Tibet Model Eastern University in Iran. He's an assistant professor in Kharazmi University now, and also for more than 2-3 years now he's working as National Road Safety Commission consultant, and recently working on the speed management project, and he's leading the enforcement part. So thank you, Mohsen, for joining us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ali. You hear me, Bill?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ali, and thank you for a good presentation of my own Thank you very much for introducing me. And on my own behalf, I would like to celebrate also the Human Road Safety Week and all the efforts to be undertaken in this great week. I would like to speak a little bit about the fundamentals of speed enforcement, particularly in a speed management program, but a little bit more about the safe system approach and the paradigm shift to safe system thinking. Then I would go to the role of speed and enforcement in speed in safe system design and the principles of traffic law enforcement. I wanted to give a little evidence about the program we have started recently in Iran, and to go into a phased implementation approach we have in that project. But for the lack of time, unfortunately, I will give that presentation in a better time. But in traditional approach, everything is focused on human education and increasing the awareness and their enforcement and punishment, all to make them commit to the road rules. But it is very it is apparent now that human error is part of a person, and nobody can eradicate human errors from the nature of the human. So it is very apparent that this traditional approach of focusing on eradication of human error cannot result in any significant results, because people cannot be relied upon to behave safely, and although they may have good intentions, they can make mistakes. So training, education, and enforcement are not enough to correct road users. The better way actually is to to go to a safe system thinking, and it is based on it is based on some very important principles. We are trying to provide safety by design. By changing the environment, we will correct the people's behavior, not only the built environment, but also the social environment, the legislation, the enforcement, the technology, etc., etc. A holistic design is required to consider the interconnections between the elements, and the whole element should be tailored to the human physical and cognitive limitations. And all of these efforts should be evidence-based and should use the evidence to to provide enough interventions. This, as there are a good number of conceptual models where human lack of or the human problems in abilities and cognitive abilities, or humans deficiencies in the physical body are in the core, and by providing interventions for safe system, or by providing the interventions in safer vehicles, safer road infrastructure, and safer road users, we can approach to the disabilities of the human cognition and physical tolerance when a crash occurs. And all these require some prerequisites. We should trigger the risk factors: alcohol, distraction, drugs, and among the most important risk factors is speed. And speed can be elicited by special circumstances. For example, young and novice drivers may commit to speeding, etc. And to trigger the speed or target the speed, you need to have a good support in terms of legislation, in terms of enforcement, in terms of communication, in terms of awareness raising, in terms of technology, and they are around this nice circle. There have been a good number of conceptual frameworks like this one and this one, and at the core we have the people with all the problems, all the deficiencies in cognition, and all the deficiencies in the physical ability to resist the energy of the crash or a crash. But to provide a safe system, speed is very important, and safe speed should be considered, as Hafez mentioned, based on the type of road crash. So different speed, different safe speeds have been adopted, and they should be in place, but there are a lot of problems. This table gives a sound number of safe system speed based on the road type and the potential road collision, and it is important to make people be convinced that these speeds are also important, and to commit to this maybe different speed regime. So it is apparent that if road features and its surroundings make speeding attractive, then changes should be conducted in the infrastructure. The roadscape should be changed in the way that the roadside and the road does not invite speeding. But if there are non-regular occurrence of speeding on the roads, some minor infrastructure changes are required, and traffic enforcement and information should be also in place. To speak a little bit or to enter into the concept behind the speeding, the literature has entered into the motivation behind, or the motives behind, a specific, or as the motives behind safe behavior in a safe system, how people are motivated to commit to safer behaviors. There are two specific kinds of motives. One is the intrinsic motive that comes from the inside of the people, inside of the performer, and it depends on the person and the activity. In terms of road user behavior, perhaps someone may want to wear a seatbelt or does not want to drink and drive, or to take the safer speed because the intrinsic motives, because he or she may understand that this speed is useful for him or her, for his healthy behavior, etc. But not all the people are committed to do or to commit to safe actions based on these motives. There are always some people who needs external motives. External motives come from outside the people, and it involves a punishment or a reward. And in terms of road traffic enforcement, people may want to commit to safer behaviors, just not to punish or not to be enforced. And
Dear Mohsen, 10 more minutes, 10 more minutes.
okay, thank you. So it is very important that those people who are exceeding a lot, exceeding the, I mean exceeding high levels of, sorry, it is important that people who are exceeding a lot of the safer speed be enforced, and if there are a lot of people who are violating the speed limit, particularly those who are violating the speed limit on much amounts of deviation from the mean speed, they should be enforced, and they should be they should change their behavior in order to decrease the number of crashes. Based on the evidence, a 5% reduction, the mean speed would result in something like 22, about 20% decrease in fatal crashes, and there are corresponding decreases in serious injuries and minor injuries as well. So it is important to enforce the people who are committing the road violations very strictly in order to increase the road safety. So legislation may influence drivers in three ways. And the first way is through increasing the objective risk of detection by increasing the level of surveillance, by increasing the probability of catching the offenders, by possible prosecution, and by adjudication of the violators. And this means that legislation increases the objective risk of being apprehended on the roads. The second way is through increasing the likelihood, the feeling, not the statistical likelihood, but the feelings. If as a driver, I see that there are a lot of police activities alongside the roads, then I may, or then this may give me the impression that there is a good chance of being caught for infringements, and this also can work. So we need supportive measures. For example, we will need media and publicity campaigns, information campaigns, and enforcement strategies just to give the people the sense of being enforced, although the level of objective risk of being apprehended is not that much. And the third way of changing the or increasing the compliance through legislation is the direct way, as is shown on the picture, meaning that legislation may directly influence behavior by making road users aware of the norms of the codes of correct behavior. And this elicits actually the intrinsic motives that I've already talked about it. Meaning that road users may want to comply with the rules that have been defined by the legislation just to behave as prescribed by the law. So we have two processes as is depicted on this diagram for influencing to driver behavior. One is the general deterrence and the other is the specific deterrence. For general deterrence, we have the impact of the threat of legal punishment on the people. And for the specific deterrence, we have the general deterrence. We have the actual experiences that one might have experienced through detection and prosecution and punishment. So we will have some principles for an effective road safety enforcement, and particularly the speed enforcement. The first one is that the primary focus should be on the general deterrence process, meaning that the actual enforcement should be accompanied by publicity, should be unpredictable, because you will need to give the drivers a sense of threat. So it should be unpredictable, it should be difficult to avoid, it should be based on anywhere, anytime approach. It should accompany a mix of highly visible and less visible activities. It should primarily focus on times and locations with high risk of or high rate of violation, and it should be continued over a longer period of time.
3 minutes,
On the
Mohsen.
other,
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay. In the meantime, I would continue with just a few more general principles, but all the principles I've collected are in this presentation. I can share it with you all if you can find it interesting. As another principle, speed enforcement can gain in effectiveness if it is targeted towards prioritized roles, situations, and times, and this also may provide or may act based on a specific deterrence process. It is important to note that the enforcement is not solely a deployment of a number of police officers with uniforms and, you know, on police cars deployed on roads, but also it needs uh, uh, you to prosecute the violating drivers and to punish the violating drivers. So this is a chain model to say, and you know, if you cut any of these chains, you know the effect of uh, uh, deterrence would fade off immediately. So it is very important to have all the chains together to continue the uh, punishment of the deviant behaviors. So there are a good number of types policing deployed alongside roads, and if they continue uh, on a random basis in time and location, then you have the random road watch that the studies have shown that they are also, it is also effective in improving the behavior. Uh, there is, in the literature, there is another type of speed enforcement that is stationary American style. Uh, the officers and the patrol, uh, when he or she sees a driver overspeeding, he or she can chase uh, the violating driver and report the speed, and then they can stop the vehicle and enforce it. Speed cameras are also very effective, and when they are, interconnected together or connected together, the speeds are connected together. You can, enforce the average speed. That is also very new tactic for speed enforcement. But it is also it needs you to have enough legislation for doing the average speed enforcement. Uh,
Your time is up,
is
dear
up.
Mohsen.
Okay, so I have a number of more slides here, but for the lack of time, I can just share it with the participants, and I am also ready in the case there is any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mohsen, for this wonderful presentation on enforcement that is quite important for all of us, and especially for this week that we are talking about the 30 kilometers per hour speed limit in cities and urban limits. We know all of us are very eager to implement and see how it's possible to have 30 kilometers per hour a new normal in our urban cities. So to see what's happening and how it could be possible, we have the last speaker with us that when I think about 30 kilometers per hour, not this year, for years, as I know him very well, with this 20 K signpost limit everywhere. He is with us now for the last presentation. Thank you, Rod, for joining us. He is the founder and company designer of 20's Plenty for Us based in UK, and we are all ready to have your presentation and let us know how it's possible to make it new norm for all urban speed limit. The floor is yours, Rod.
Okay. Thank you, Ali. So let me get my screen up. I'd really like to thank you for inviting me, and it's really great to be seeing so many people from all over the world with this common objective of making our streets safer. I'm not really going to make the case for a 20 mile an hour or 30 kilometers per hour limits. There is so much evidence that these are the right thing to do whenever you have motor vehicles which are sharing places with people walking and cycling. But what I'm going to concentrate on is how we should set a national 30 kilometers per hour limit rather than just looking at site-specific interventions. Because, you know, the thing which we're looking for is this everywhere. And, you know, one of the things about the Stockholm Declaration, which talks about 30 kilometers per hour, it doesn't say where you can or where it's convenient, right, or whether you can afford it. It actually says wherever you have motor vehicles mixing with people walking and cycling. So, who are 20 Plenty for Us, or Love 30, which we
Sorry, Rod, could you make it full screen to?
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Is it right? Let me just change this then.
It's okay, just press the right left top from the beginning or from the current slide. You can see you can under the home tab is from the current slide. If you
in PowerPoint, you have to look in PowerPoint, not in Zoom.
Yeah,
just in your PowerPoint.
In your PowerPoint.
Sorry, on PowerPoint it is big. It's filling my screen at the moment. So you're saying that it's not filling your screens. Is that correct?
And in the PowerPoint, you're not in presentation mode, so you have to click on from slideshow from beginning. You just have to start your slideshow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Can you see it full screen now? Is that okay?
Not yet.
No.
Oh, I think you should share your screen again, maybe.
Okay, let me do that.
I think you have it already open in full screen, but
try this again.
I think you selected the other file to be shared.
Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, very well. Go ahead.
Right, okay. Let's press on then. Okay, who are 20's Plenty for Us Love 30? Well, we're called Love 30, of course, in places which use modern units of measure rather than miles per hour. We were formed in 2007. We're a small team of people, very small, only four, but we're based in the UK. We now have 500 local campaigns, not only in the UK, but around the world. And that is thousands of volunteer campaigners. So those four people which you see, their efforts are levered up by thousands of people in communities all around the world who are saying they want slower speeds in their places. Already in the UK, 21 million people live in places where 30 kilometers per hour is the norm speed limit on most roads. So we assist and empower those who want lower urban village speed limits to create better streets for people in the UK and all over the world. And of course, that is aligning with global best practice from the WHO and UN. Now, I'm sure you've all seen this this slide before with the streets as we see them on the left, but actually what the risk is on the right. But, you know, there's a big problem with this, and it implies that we should never go near roads. And it certainly dissuades us from allowing our children to use those roads to walk or cycle to school. But the problem is not pedestrians seeing this risk, but it's drivers not seeing the risk. So the key to that is changing public consensus on the way we perceive what I call the public spaces between buildings that we call streets. So how can we do this, right, with speed limits? Now, another graphic is used is to show us how being hit by a car at different speeds is equivalent to falling out of a window. And here we have a 6th floor is 70 kilometers per hour, 3rd floor is 50 kilometers per hour, and the 1st floor is just 30 kilometers per hour. So if we can get those streets down, then that implies that, yeah, we will harm ourselves less. One problem with this, though, why would we knowingly want to jump or fall out of a window at those heights at all? And we're looking at 17 meters, 9 meters, or nearly 4 meters. But what we can do is actually combine those together. And here what I've done is taken that building of 1st floor and the way that being hit by a car at 30 kilometers per hour is equivalent to falling out of a 1st floor window, and turn that into something which isn't a suicidal chasm anymore, but it's a drop that is less fearful. It's far more manageable and survivable when mistakes are made. So this is our interpretation of what that road is like when you get the speed down to 30 kilometers per hour. It's a much friendlier place for pedestrians and cyclists. But currently, the reality is this. The desired norm, what UN Global Road Safety Week is calling for, is that ideal of minimal risk there in terms of that trench or drop right in the road. But what we actually have is this. So we're actually seeing there's a huge difference. I'm sure we've all walked along somewhere where there's a drop of 3.6 meters, and we say, hey, I've got to watch that. Don't want to go near there really, but you know, I can manage it. But 9 meters, that's the height of 2 London buses. Can you imagine we're up there and you're looking down there and you're saying, oh, that's really scary. So, and that is what it is. And you know, it's even scarier for our children, right, who are looking at this. So what we've got to do is actually move away from the norm we have. So let's accept that we're doing all this work on 30 kilometers per hour, right? But we have to accept that the 50 kilometers per hour national urban limit is no longer fit for purpose. It doesn't work anymore in the 21st century as we move into this 3rd decade, and particularly this 2nd decade of action on road safety. And, you know, let's take some evidence which we have in the UK. We have 70,000 casualties per year on 30 mile per hour, which is 50 kilometers per hour roads. Now, if that was safe, why have we got 70,000 casualties? And you can look at your own countries and do the same. Yet, consistently in surveys, when people have gone out and said, what's the right speed limit for residential roads, the roads where people shop and the people, the high streets, people say that 70% of people say that 30 kilometers per hour is the right limit for those roads. What they're also saying is that 70% are saying 30 miles per hour or 50 kilometers per hour is wrong. The public recognizes wholeheartedly that a 50 kilometers per hour limit is not the right limit for most of our roads. And 50 kilometers per hour is being rejected by so many cities in the UK and around the world. London, Edinburgh, Cardiff, Oxford, Cambridge. I could carry on naming them. We actually have 21 million people living in cities where they said 30 miles an hour, 50 kilometers per hour, it doesn't work for us. We'll change it. And Paris, Brussels, Oslo, Madrid, Barcelona, Portland, Seattle, etc. Spain set a national 30 kilometers per hour limit from May the 11th last week. Wales is setting a national 20 mile an hour limit, and the Netherlands is planning a national 30 kilometers per hour limit as well. This is the way society is changing. It's rejecting that old 30 mile an hour or 50 kilometer per hour, which was usually set in the last century, 90, often 50 years ago. Right. So it isn't appropriate. So let's have a little bit about what's happened in the UK. Most citywide 20 mile limits do not have any new physical calming. It's engagement plus more engagement, a little bit of enforcement, and sometimes a little bit of engineering. It's what I call communicating with people through hearts and minds, rather using speed bumps to communicate via their buttocks and spines. And you know, the problem with communicating people through their buttocks and spines, as soon as you stop those speed limits, they revert to norm. So it's so much more powerful if we can have that engagement and change the public consensus about how we drive in the presence of people. Results, by the way, look, this isn't a silver bullet. It's not going to cure everything with regard to our roads. But what we do know is that we get results in speed reduction, right, which will depend on how fast the road is beforehand, right? So we will get a reduction of up to 6 to 10 kilometers per hour on some of those faster roads. And of course, you can always add a little bit of light touch engineering, parking bays, planters, so many things can be done, right, which don't need huge engineering. Because let's face it, we don't have enough engineers, we don't have enough concrete, we don't have enough money, right, to put physical traffic calming in all the places where we want a 30 kilometer per hour limit. Results, by the way, in casualty reduction, Bath 23%, Calderdale 30%, Edinburgh 33% reduction on those roads. So quite significant and actually consistent with this 4% reduction for every kilometers per hour drop which we get. But there's a problem. All of these have been done by the local cities themselves, or local authorities. And being localized suppresses it being normal. By keeping a national 50 kilometers per hour limit, we are abnormalizing 30 kilometers per hour, and we're still normalizing unsafe higher speeds elsewhere because that's the national limit. That's the default which is specified by the national government. And I would say, how can you create a 30 kilometers per hour norm when the process of setting it is to treat 30 kilometers per hour as an exception. And that is the case in so many countries. The Stockholm Declaration says speed should be 30 kilometers. You can show evidence that a higher limit is safe. Yet in most countries, the legal process is that by default, you have 50 kilometers per more, unless the local authority can show evidence that 30 kilometers per hour is needed. And then you have all the red tape and obstacles to do that. A national urban limit of 50.
3
okay.
minutes.
3 minutes, goodness. A national urban limit of 50 kilometers will never normalize driving at 30 kilometers per hour in urban village areas. I'm going to now rely upon the fact that you'll be getting the slides at some stage in the future. So really, it is illogical for governments to set a national urban limit of 50 kilometers per hour and then urge all the local authorities and cities to change it to 30 on most urban roads because it is considered inappropriate. This is illogical. It doesn't make sense. So, set a national limit. There are a number of things which you can do. Look these things up. You'll see the slide. I'll go through them and I'll actually move as quickly as I can on these. The only logical conclusion, set that national 30K limit. You can use the evidence of physics of speed, develop a public consensus, lobby for establishment consensus and government. The establishment takes action. You get your 30 kilometers per hour with education. You get the behavior changed gained. Key takeaways, help politicians do the right thing. Sometimes they need an awful lot of help. I know that, I'm British. It's more social engineering than traffic engineering. Please remember that. It's about changing public consensus. Isolated limits, endorse going faster elsewhere. Population-wide rather than site-specific. 50 kilometers and above, it fails our communities. Wide rollout is better, national preferential. Do it like Spain and do it like Wales. 30 kilometers per hour as a norm is deliverable in minimal time to provide a foundation for the second decade of action on road safety, 2021 to 2030. It's effective in reducing speeds, reducing casualties, and symbolically changing streets in favor of vulnerable road users. There are few constraints in terms of funding, engineering skills, or materials. So please, can you set a 30 kilometers per hour in your country? Spain says, yes, we have, we've done it. Wales is saying, yes, we are, we're doing it at 20 miles an hour. Maybe it's time for you to say, yes, we will. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation, and let us know what's the reality and what's the facts behind that and how we can push it forward to make it happening, what we are just maybe most of us seeing as a slogan only, 30 kilometers we support it, but how we can support is very important, and really you show the way, and I think you're really champion for this, and please copy paste yourself to all around the world, help us on this, and it would be fantastic to know more about what is the behind this 30 kilometers per hour as a new norm for urban streets. So now I think we are exactly on time, but I want to have a brief Q&A session to allow people to ask the question. In this webinar, I want to go to open mic. So if you have question, please raise your hand, but we have a strict rule for this session that is 30 seconds only for having a question or comment, and we will have the same time for the panel to help us with the would be the question. So if you have a question, please just raise your hand so I can see who want to speak and open the mic for you. Okay. Still I can't see any hands up. Okay, one. Okay,
yes,
UQ.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Only 30 seconds.
To,
30 seconds.
do you hear me?
Yes, you have only
My
30
question
seconds.
goes to Rod. And how do you think we can educate politicians? I really agree to you. The engineering is very much social than the civil engineering. No, this is social engineering. So my question is, how can we educate politicians?
Thank you.
That's
Thank
my
you.
question.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I think the most important thing is developing a debate in civil society, right, about the values of your streets, what I call the public spaces between buildings. I think that's the founding thing, and you need to put this debate into the family context rather than the driver context. This is not about how those streets are seen from behind the steering wheel. This is how these streets are seen by an 8-year-old standing at the side of the road, or maybe an 80-year-old trying to cross the road. And I think once we start to debate this, not about drivers and their perceptions, about what us as people, individuals want for our families, right, for our places where we live, work, and play, right, then we can actually move forward on that. And once you get that debate, involve politicians, because they're the ones who are most concerned. They don't understand that so much of the public are in support of lower speeds. Once they do, then they will be on your side. And I think that's an important thing. And then you combine that with the experts. But it's important to take this population-wide view rather than site-specific. As traffic engineers, we're often involved with dealing with a problem here rather than a wider problem across the whole population, right? And that's where this comes in. So think big, think population-wide, right, and think of the improvements which can come from it.
Thank you so much, Rod. Lena, over to you.
Yes, so here in Australia we have quite a divide in the population. I would say it's not clear to people if people walking should watch out for themselves, or if drivers should also watch out for them. There's culture about, when you're in the car, you own the road, and everybody else watch out for me, quite deep in the culture. So would you recommend to completely combine the argument that if you want people walking and cycling, you need to go to the default of 30, or what do you think that is too extreme to do it, to combine it?
Thank you so much. Rod or Hafez?
I think one of the most important things is to understand what your national values are. If your national values are that the biggest people can shove the little people out of the way, then that's what you have. But you have to go back and debate your national values and challenge them, because remember that I'm in my car, everybody else has to take their luck in avoiding me. That's a view of a very small minority. When you start to look at the questions, and Hafez, you can comment better than me on the Australian psyche, so please do.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of mention a few things, and this is also related to the last question as well. So in Australia, you have different levels of government. And I think like around the globe, we have different levels of government, and they are sensitive to different sort of community reaction. So what I would suggest is we need to understand what drives our politicians at different levels of government, and we can address, you know, the point. And I've got some friends here from local councils in Victoria, and they can definitely help us. Maybe I can even invite them for maybe 10, 15 or 20 seconds comment on that, because we are in Victoria starting to change speed limit at the local council level. So we are making some change that can start that sort of snowball effect.
Thank you so much. You can raise your hand by using the reactions and on the bottom side of the screen. I cannot see more question. If you have question, please raise your hand so I can see your hand is up. Or okay. Any more question?
Krishna Murthy has a question.
Okay, please open your mic, unmute yourself. Krishna, please unmute. Can you hear me? Please unmute yourself so you would be able to ask your question. Okay, we can't hear his voice. Okay, if we have no questions, we can end the session with the last sentences from the speakers. Okay, Mr. Ali Khampour have a question. Please open your mic for the last question we have. Ali, can you, please.
Hello, everyone. I have a question that I think the driver's personality trait is also very important issues, and in fact, traffic psychology issues. I mean that extroverted drivers, for example, are more less law-abiding and have a more sensation-seeking. My question is that what's the traffic psychology help this problem, and the role of human factor is important in these issues.
Thank you.
I want to know about the traffic psychology in this problem.
Thank you so much for the question. I just want, before having a question, that we will have Tanya Fostik in the next webinar that will talk about this human behavior and how we can do with behavior change. Just do you want Tanya to just have a brief one two sentences on what we will you cover on the next session, if you want? Tanya, can you hear me? Okay, so I think, please join us for this next second. Mohsen, can you talk 1-2 sentences about this behavior change, because we will have Tanya for the next webinar completely covering this issue.
Yes. Personally, I think that process of the deterrence process actually roots in social learning theories that have extensively supported by the sociology and social psychology. So it is very relevant that people can socially learn by what they are, or how they are enforced, or how they are dealing with the traffic system. It is very true, actually, that based on the characteristics of the people, they can have different levels of social learning. And I think that, yes, it is relevant. People with people who are of extraverted characteristics or tend to behave individually, and they may commit more offenses and violations in traffic system. These are the hypotheses, actually, and should be placed in test.
Thank you so much, Mohsen, for have the presentation and this answer. And the last wrap up from sentences from Hafez.
Thank you, Ali, for the opportunity. And thank you everyone here for your time and your attention, your patience with us. I just want to share one graph with you, and that's it. That's my last sentence. So when you think 30 kilometers per hour, just remember that's about a variety of different things. It's from catering for kids and elderly. It's about making places. It's about 20-minute neighborhoods. It's about carbon dioxide like policies, walking and cycling strategies, urban mobility planning and safe system. So you can do 30 from a variety of perspectives, use them. The evidence is there. People like Rod, myself, Ali are out there to provide you with evidence and help. So good on you, more power to you, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed presentation, the wonderful. Myself really enjoyed and learned different things today, and I'm happy that we have esteemed speakers highly with high expertise in this different views, different angles to the speed management. And I think in the next webinar, we will have more to cover, and we will learn more or remind us more that how we can implement real effective speed management that works and save more lives. Thank you everybody for joining us, and you will receive the recorded webinar in your emails, and I will ask presenters and speakers if they are happy to share their presentation files with us, and if they agree, I will ask you, I will send you their presentation as well. Thank you so much, and please join us for the next session on next Friday on 28th May. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.